Hello and welcome to episode 52 of The Imperial Truth. I'm Greg. As usual, joining me is Neil.
Hello, Greg.
Hello, Neil. We are going to be looking into the Blackshields later on with Myles from Lil Legend Studios. But before we go too far, let's talk about a sponsor. Pick one, Neil.
Element Games. Element Games are your store for all your hobby needs. They have everything you can imagine, from the latest GW releases to every other card game and board game I think you can want to own, and probably a few that you don't want to own.
Indeed.
And you can get your paints, your glues, your magnets, whatever you need, but please remember to go through the banner on our webpage.
Yep, at theimperialtruth.com. And remember, you can also pick up your books there. So actually something we didn't talk about in the news was, I think, Shadows of Treachery, the last hardback to make us all catch up, is now available. So if they've got that there, you can pick that up there. We've got Korax coming out soon, and various other books, so you can pick them up there and you'll have them probably on the Saturday they're released as well, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
And of course, as we talk later on with Prospero coming up, you're probably going to get that at 20% off and delivered that morning as well. So definitely keep an eye out for that one.
Definitely.
And then, of course, we have joining us Myles from Lil Legend Studios. So we'll be talking to him later on. Anything you want painted, basically. Centerpiece models are his speciality, but he does other stuff as well. And all you have to do is follow his. I think he's started to collect galleries of specific things on Facebook now, or whether he's done it through his site. So you can go and look at a Death Guard gallery, which is pretty cool. So,
it's great inspiration, if nothing else. And if you're thinking of commission, more than likely he's probably already done that model that you want to get commissioned, so you can have a good look at what he's done previously.
Yeah, multiple versions of them as well, usually.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, no, it's looking awesome. So what have you been up to, Neil? Still in between houses, as it were?
In between houses, but I've managed to smuggle my paints into my current living quarters. So you've been huddled round one little lamp and got a few paints out.
Excellent. What are you doing?
I'm doing the Leviathan Dreadnought.
Cool.
The Night Lords one. So I felt as though I needed to start afresh on something to try and get back into the painting bug. And it's going quite well. And hopefully, fingers crossed, it's going to go to plan. But you never know with these things.
So is this for a competition, or is it just for the army?
This is a competition piece for Heresy Weekender. But I've got 3 entries I want to get done. This is one of them. Not 100% on how it's going to come out completely yet, but I've got the picture in my mind, which is the colour plate out of the last book. So that's what I'm aiming for. But it's going very heavy metal style at the moment, so it may be a bit cleaner than the Forge World stuff. Yeah,
I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Might help it stand out a little bit.
Could do.
Because a lot of people do go for all the weathering.
All the weathering, all the chipping, all the damage.
Awesome. I'm not going to bore everyone too much with my Age of Sigmar painting. Finally got my last 3 Castellax made and painted.
Ooh.
So I've made a deal with someone for another Thanatar. So I need to go and pick that up or get him to post that to me. And I put in an order at the Forge Worlds for some more Thalax and Castellax with a Dark Lance and a Choo-Choo Train to deliver my Myrmidons.
Always useful, those Choo-Choo Trains.
Yeah, not cheap though, for like 100 and whatever point model.
I suppose that's the one good thing you've got if you're running Land Raiders. At least you can buy some plastic ones. It saves a few.
And they're expensive points-wise.
Yes, both ways.
I could quite easily have a few Choo-Choo Trains, but it builds up very quickly. So it's a bit like the drop pod problem, isn't it?
Yes.
They're not cheap, particularly the Dreadnought ones for Forge World. But it is what it is. So yeah, it's 160 quid's worth spent there, and what have I got for this? Okay, it's fine. That's a bit of work, but hopefully going to get as much of that done and painted for the campaign weekend as possible to give myself a few options. Need to play with some of it as well to work out exactly what I'm doing and what all the rules are. I want to ram stuff with my Choo-Choo Train, so that'll be good fun indeed. But yeah, that's it's pretty much been me, I think. on that side of things. In terms of event organisation, I've had an offer come up, which I'm talking to someone about, to do something else, which is slightly different. So it's kind of rearranged all my plans a little bit. So everything's been on hold while I've been making a decision. I need to talk to some more people about a few things, bits and pieces. One thing I did start to work on was the facts of the pack. So rather than the games and stuff, all the information that's on the front of it, because I thought I could do this, crack this out, because it's roughly similar every time.
Yeah, sort of doing the legwork.
Yeah, and I got to the bit on armies allowed, and there's been talk on some podcasts recently, and on the forums is where I think it sprung up again, about demons. What's your opinion on demons in 30k?
I think they're a part of it, personally. You know, they're featured in the books. There's a lot about demons in a lot of the stories. You know, there's definite rules, bridges for them with word bearers and things like that anyway. So I don't have a problem with them. In fact, I played a demon army with my Iron Hands once, and it was for no detriment to the game. I quite enjoyed it. It was a good game. The Iron Hands still came out on top, so, you know, I didn't think, this doesn't work, I don't like playing demons, etc. I think it's still part of the heresy.
Sure. There's part of the problem is there's no specific heresy list for demons. So the word bearers explicitly state that you are allowed to use the demon codex to make your army. The militia cults do the same.
Yeah.
But there's also a bit in the militia cult saying they can be allies for a demon army.
Yeah.
And the two demon princes we got, what's his name who always dies?
I know you mean.
The big demon. Oh my word, this episode's been really bad for me forgetting stuff. Samus.
That's the guy, yeah.
Yeah, so he's got rules which are not printed anywhere but the PDF or whatever they are. And so people, I don't think it's a problem for, small gaming groups are always going to be able to solve these things. The question was put over on Age of Darkness podcast actually about, what about events? If someone turns up at your event with a demon army, what do you do? Some people won't like it, some people might like it. Well, for me, as an event organizer, the idea is to stop those occurrences happening in the first place. So, I agree. Demons are in the book. Demons were around during the Great Crusade. We've had fights against them there. They're proliferated through the book. When people say, one thing some people say is when demons aren't around yet as a major army. Well, we don't, in general, most events don't specify a period of time. It's not like a historical game where they say this is the 4th year of the heresy, because otherwise then people can't use Ferrus, people can't use other people who've died, and they can't use their Imperial Fist terror army because, let's sit on the walls of terror because we're not at terror, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Becomes quite restrictive. So I'm like, it's a heresy army. Demons are going to be in the heresy at some point. One thing you might have to do is, there are no formations allowed anyway in the heresy kind of army structure. So that automatically kind of precludes them. But there are a few things which could have potential to be a little bit funny, like the 2-up re-rolling Screamers Star or whatever it's called. I assume it's still a thing, potentially, which could cause some problems. But that's not really in the spirit of most events anyway, so I don't think you'd get it.
And it's down to the event to take these armies that maybe people wouldn't be happy to play and find a way of getting people to getting them games and getting games that people enjoy. So,
yes,
like Second Reaver, it was very much sort of, right, these armies are the ones we think are nasty, these are the ones that will be, you can select to play them, but by all means, talk about it first. And it was a case of taking the sting out of the tail almost.
That's very much how my events will be run. I don't necessarily think it's down to the event organizer to do that. It's down to the event organizer to make a decision over whether they do that or not, and to portray that. Because again, you could easily have a campaign set in the 2nd year of the heresy, which doesn't allow Ferrus and it doesn't allow whoever, like
That's
say,
true.
saying the Blood Angels aren't back yet, or what have you. There are
And
lots of things
we've
you could
discussed campaigns of are Primarchs allowed and things like that as well, haven't we?
do. Yeah, so you can do that. It might restrict who comes. As I say, for me, I think demons are a perfectly valid part of the heresy. I think there are potential issues with that, which, if you are going to allow them, you have to address. So, as an event organizer, I'll write a pack that says, these are the armies you're allowed. Any of the armies in the 5 Forge World Horus Heresy books are legitimate, because again, you might say Shattered Legions aren't allowed, you might or not, particularly Shattered Legions and the other list, the Mixed Human list. It says they're not, they almost need permission to be used,
Yes.
as it were.
Yeah.
So you clarify that as well, because it just stops that question coming in an email from 5 different people. Can I take this? Can I take this? So you're just saving yourself time. So you say, yep, all the lists from the 5 Horus Heresy books and demons can be used. And in my case, for Tak and Reva, demons may be used as usual as Word-Bearer allies, as Warp Cult and Militia allies. They may also be taken as a primary detachment, where if you do that, you may only take Militia as allies for them.
Right, yeah.
Or no allies for them. You can, again, because they're demons, you can do what you want with that in that respect. But yeah, I think, well, from my point of view, it's the event organisers kind of part of your role, part of making life easy for you, is to lay that out beforehand. And so you're not going to hit everything. You will still get questions about something somewhere down the line. But the more you lay out, the less time you're replying the same answer to various emails.
Yes, because the first time or first couple of times you can probably deal with it, but when it's the 20th time, you're probably sick to death of it.
Yeah, and it might not be that bad, but and to that point, some people are like, some packs I've seen recently have been along the lines of colours must, the models must be painted appropriate to their legion, which is taking it a step further, and one that I've said multiple times I'm kind of have issue with a little bit, because would my Space Wolves be allowed at an event like that? It's a bit ambiguous.
Having them painted is a good start.
Yeah, painted is a good start. But again, some events are in places where they want to build a community. So they want to, if we didn't have a painting kind of requirement at Tak and Reva, we might have lost some people, but we might have gained some people.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would think, well, my army isn't done. I can't afford Lil Legend Studios. I can't go.
Yeah, and that's another decision to make. I think most of us want to play in all painted event armies. I think the bigger the event, the more that's sort of required.
It certainly, I think, adds to the whole event.
Yeah.
I think as soon as the grey resin and plastic creeps in, the effort level for a lot of people goes through the floor, and then it becomes very much. I think in some ways it can become a bit more overly competitive as well, because you will see people just taking stuff because they know they can, and it's a nasty combo.
Yeah, there's a potential to allow that. Also, I actually think we would have had less people at Tak and Reva if it was like that. I think
I think you're right.
I think there are more people who care about seeing cool armies. And everyone was aware. Everyone who messaged me was like, "Yeah, cool. I'm building towards next year. I'm not ready this year." And that's fine. However, yeah, if you're in an area where there's a small kind of group of people who are just getting into it, then actually your event might be aimed at them. So you might have smaller points for starters, and you might say, look, yeah, this event, fine, unpainted models are fine. Maybe give a bonus to the people who have painted armies. The other thing Tak and Reva did was, was go heavy on the painting options, awards, and the hobby awards. So it was very much, again, you're talking about competitiveness. Great. Someone, even if we allowed unpainted stuff, and someone bought their killer unpainted list, they weren't going to win anything.
Yeah.
So it almost becomes an irrelevance in that respect. Although you still get, competitive people who want to go there and win all 5 games, and that's fair enough. and that's cool. But yeah, it's very much my thinking on armies, and I've always also alongside those armies, so I lay out what armies are allowed. I say it's clear. I also, it's going to be harder. We haven't had those FAQs come out in official capacity yet, have we?
No, we're still waiting on those.
Yeah, that's a bit of a grey area. And it may be that I actually end up writing an FAQ of that, which fits better how I think the game should be played. Because at the end of the day, within reason, the event organiser making an event, you normally make an event that you want to play in, because that's my judgment on what's a cool event. Obviously, at some point, there's a little bit of, 90% of people don't agree with me on that one. I'll leave that one out. But within reason, you're going to have what you like and how you want to do things. So I could take that FAQ, that temporary one, and look through it and write my own version up to use for that. What I don't allow to be used, really, is when people email, phone, or write into Forge World and ask them questions. Because half the time that's just a dude on the end of the phone who says something along the lines of, "Oh yeah, we play it like that in our games," which is just the same as asking Bob.
Or asking me.
Yeah, exactly. Half the time it is. Because, they might not actually play many other Forge World people. Their friendship group might be more in the, somewhere else, and they play them. So, not saying they're going to be wrong all the time, but they're not going to be right all the time either. And we've seen it a number of times where answers have been given in that respect and then completely changed when they've come out officially.
Yeah, I think for me it has to have that official stamp on it before I'll any notice of it. Also, half the time you're relying on the person who's written in to get that message across. Yeah.
So it's like, oh, wonderful, Neil, you've written to Forge World and said that. How do I know that?
Exactly.
Or how do I know you listened correctly and didn't get confused by their answer or whatever? If I go up to Alan Bly and ask him a question and he answers me, then for me that's fine. I know that, but I don't expect everyone just to take that necessarily at face value. Oh yeah, no, that really works that way, Alan said. Oh yeah, it really just takes off that model. It's fine. Especially with 30k where some of the rules are like, whoa, that does what? You're potentially just creating an issue. It doesn't need to be there. And most people won't have an issue in that respect, but it just stops that potential.
Yes. Completely.
So yeah, I've been working on that. Fingers crossed over the next few weeks we might have a bit more of an announcement about exactly what's going on with the first event of next year. I say it's all still up in the air, but there's still plenty of time, so it's not a major issue on that front. But yeah, good times.
Excellent.
Awesome. We'll leave that there. We'll come back and we'll chat some news. And here we go into the news with some exciting news stuffs. We'll start at Forge World, and the timings of this means that it will be coming out a day or two before the Open Day, the European Open Day. Unfortunately, I will not be attending. I was tempted when we get on to Russ, but I'm committed that day, so it has kind of made me... It's just pulled me back from the edge of flying over there for a day and flying back in the evening.
Just stop that craziness that was flying around in your mind.
It's not that crazy. It's 80 quid for a flight, getting to the airport, which would be driving up, parking somewhere near, getting a train in, and it's 80 quid. It's just a busy day.
It's a busy day. My one main fear, and I was very much like you when I saw Russ was out, thinking, that's quite doable, fly over. But it's ensuring that you get one.
Yeah,
because if you go all that way and then you come away and you didn't get one, then what was the point?
I'm 90% sure you would. But, yeah, it's not going to happen anyway. Had they released the tickets earlier, I probably would have had a weekend over in Amsterdam and gone. But, hey-ho, it's not to be. But anyway, we had a Thousand Sons Legion transfer sheet released.
Same great quality as always?
Yeah, placing bets on it just being the Space Wars one next week.
Quite possibly.
Until we get a major release, I think this is going to be a little bit like that. But they all need to come out. There's no point whining that your weapon sets aren't out yet. We know they'll be on the way. We can only suspect with the now leaked pictures of what appears to be the Prospero boxed game that there's going to be some, if not combined release, certainly timescale wise around the same time release for the Prospero book and the new game, and probably Russ as well.
What an expensive month or couple of months that's going to be.
Potentially, yeah. We know GW have never really released stuff in December before. They tend to bundle up stuff to sell that they've already got in December. That could obviously change the way things are going, but it's not been their thing recently, so it looks like November's the month. Late October, November is going to be expensive.
Yeah, so, start saving your money now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a hell of a ride.
Yeah, I'm already teeing up elements for trying to work out how many boxes I'm going to need to buy along with everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Go through theimperialtruth.com, click on the banner. The Thousand Suns transfers are looking fantastic.
Exactly what we've come to expect, and in some ways we're a little bit spoilt now, aren't we?
Well, this has happened with something with Russ. The amount of comments about Russ that have been quite meh, and one of the guys was even like, "Well, it's as expected," which is so sad, an indictment on the way us humans think a little bit.
Do you know what, a couple of things that were key for me was I didn't get a feel for the running pose in the little shots that we'd seen in the past.
No,
you got a feel for the movement of the head and things, but looking at the way the legs are positioned, I think it's a brilliantly dynamic model. It looks far better than I thought it would. The details on the armour, great, but also the base, because obviously we spoke about these bases getting bigger and bigger, and sometimes are they a little bit over the top. I think they've got it just right on his base.
Right. Yeah.
It's got a bit of detail. You've got a bit of that Prospero looking sort of like, building debris, but it's not massively over the top that you go and blimey. I mean, a lot of people have complained about Perturabo's base and things like that. It's a little bit too big. And I think for me, they've got Russ pretty much, they've hit the nail on the head.
Sure. I'm just going to look at the picture, so see it again. I didn't really look at the base. It's a Primarch base. Again, it looks cool. No dead bodies on it, which I kind of like, actually.
Yeah.
There's these, we can assume that it's supposed to be Prospero, these kind of pillars, and the markings on them appear to be of that ilk. It looks great. As you say, the pose, I think someone on one of the forums was saying, it just doesn't look like, it looks like he should be leading people and there's no one on his base and this. And I'm like, yeah, it does look like he should be leading people, because that guy is going to be taken off that base and put probably in the front of 10 men running forwards.
Probably even more. There'll probably even be like tons of walls and everything around it.
Yeah, so I think actually in some ways those comments are perfect, because he's not slaughtering everything as he's running through. He looks like he's going to kill something.
Yes.
He looks like he's on his way specifically to do a job.
Because there's been a few Primarch bases where they're literally fighting Marines, aren't they?
Yeah, slaughtering Marines.
So ultimately, I'd much prefer his pose. I'm not a big fan of the dead Marines all over a base.
I'm not, mainly because I don't want to paint them.
Yeah, no, I'm the same actually. I'm the same. It's extra detail that I don't feel as though I want to pay attention to. Yeah,
his armour is full of those little marks. Even if it's just the lines going across the armour. It's absolutely brilliant. We can't see the axe properly. The sword looks amazing. The shield on the back. The face. Some people saying it's got Fulgrim disease, but I'm like, it looks fine to me. But then Fulgrim looked fine to me, so, some brilliant comments about him having no beard, as usual. Or not being
Are we still on those no beard comments?
Oh, yeah, and not being ginger. is the other one apparently, which is amazing. Someone saying that one of the things I saw was someone replied actually on the podcast on the podcast Facebook page, was something along the lines of, his whole Legion's bearded, and it's actually, well, a lot of the Space Wolves have beards, a lot don't.
Yeah.
And actually, some of them have very little hair as well. But he's got a wonderful mane. There's a lot of hair going on there.
Yeah.
You feel like if he wanted a really big beard, he could have one.
If he wants it, yeah. If he wants one, he can have one.
I'm not sure that any Primarchs can actually have beards. Might be a part of the process.
Like elves can't grow beards.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's stunning. The chest. Actually, one of the best things about it is I'm not looking at it going, oh, great, I'm going to have to paint it in 5 different parts.
Yeah.
It looks like you've got access to most of that body.
And the armour isn't one of those ones where you think, oh, how am I going to get into that part and paint that piece?
Yeah. So for a guy who hates doing that and won't do it if I have to, unless I absolutely have to, maybe leaving his arm off at the elbow, there's probably going to be a join in there where it sits under the pauldron.
Yeah.
And the other arm off and the backpack, maybe. That's it. Like a 4-part painting piece.
Definitely. And something else that I was just thinking about. I wonder how the walls might connect into this base.
I don't think they will.
You think they'll be completely separate?
Well, I think they will be, because at the end of the day, they're going to have to be on bases.
Yeah, no, but I think, how they like to have a linked up display base sometimes, a bit like, the Fulgrim and Ferris thing.
There appears to be no room in there to insert the wolves. And remember, these wolves are big as well. Like, Ferry and Gary are huge wolves. So I think they're just going to be separate on their own little bits, not as built up as Primarch bases, obviously. I also don't think this pose necessarily suits a duel with Magnus. And in fact, from the way that Sam has talked about Magnus and him wanting to pose him, maybe floating and things like that, then that doesn't sound like it suits a duel either. So I don't think we're going to get a set duel.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Because it just doesn't seem right. He's not, like, Russ here is not striking something. Russ is running after something. He's hunting. So yeah, I don't think we're going to get that.
And it's a great paint job as well.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Just a reminder as well, the wolves are being done separately, not finished by the time of the Forge, the Forge World Open Day, done by someone else, not Sam, and left out of this set to keep the cost down, so that people who just want the Primarch can buy a Primarch, etc. 99% sure there'll be a bundle when they're all available. So whether you save any money on it or not, that's a different story. But yeah, it looks fantastic. There was a comment about he's got a fat neck, and I'm like, we've seen one photo. One photo, and like, just no, fat neck, okay, everyone's going to have their opinion, fine, but I was just like, I was a bit I had to step back. I'm like, wow, fat neck. It's stunning to me.
Would they say that to his face?
Yeah, I'm looking at this model and I'm sitting there thinking, how many models released this year are going to compete? Now, there are some, don't get me wrong. There are other model companies out there that make some sublime models. The amount that are in at this level, not a huge amount. Not a huge amount at all.
I can't think of many myself.
No, and don't get me wrong. As I say, but your Mike McVeighs and all that with his line do some stunning stuff. But for what you're getting here, and the fact that it'll be easy to put together compared to a lot of those other ones as well. It looks phenomenal. Can't wait to pick him up, which is why I was really tempted by going to Amsterdam.
And I think in some ways him being released there is almost a good thing. I think if it had been a UK event, I think the decision would have been harder as well.
Oh no, if it was a UK event, I'd have gone.
Yeah, well, exactly. But then I could see that being a lot of the UK events probably would have sold out, or it could, it'd be one of those. Oh, I wanted to go, but I didn't get a ticket.
Absolutely, I might try and wangle something, see if someone over there can buy it for me and send it over, just because I want to start on it straight away.
Yeah. I mean, fingers crossed, it's not going to be a long time from it being released over there to it being fully released, which it shouldn't be, should it?
Yeah, I mean, before Christmas, you would hope.
Yeah, you would hope so.
But yeah, we don't know how long. Sometimes it's been a couple of weeks. Sometimes it's been a month and a bit. It all depends how many they got made up, I suppose, already. It's quite cool as well that the European Open Day is getting this. So that, yeah, I know that Amsterdam's not that far from the UK, but it's far enough difference to make people think about whether they're going to go over for it or not. So it does give the Europeans, I know the Americans are now going to, we don't get one. Well, logistics, I'm sorry, it's too far away, tough. There might in the future be some events where they do stuff like this, but the very fact of, 4,000 miles difference between us and the Midwest, even is just costs involved with it. Just make it not worthwhile. We're a British company. Unfortunately, Americans have had their way with a lot of companies for a lot of years, so getting things early, but it's life. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I think I'll be getting one straight away. Looking at it going, oh no, I'm going to have to paint it Primark.
I'll happily commission it for you. I'll do it for you, but it costs you a lot of money.
I have to paint it, and if I was going to commission it, I'd go to our sponsor.
I'm not quite good enough for you, am I, Greg?
No.
Quite at the level you need.
No, yeah, just looking at that, thinking, right, this is going to be the biggest test I've ever had, because it's a Primark. Like, I don't just want to put it out and have it just be okay painted.
I mean, that's why I've painted, I'm on my, third Primark for Golden Demon now. Because I think they're just such great centerpieces and there's so much detail on them.
Oh, yeah.
You want to pick something that looks amazing and it has loads of detail. You can't really go wrong with the Primark.
No, absolutely. But it is daunting for someone who's not a brilliant painter to look at, particularly the face.
The faces are tough.
I'm looking at the armour going, yeah, cool, can do some armour. But that face is going to be tough, really tough for someone like me to sit down and paint. But hey, we're going to give it a go, and part of the reason I want to get it is because I know it's going to take me a long time to paint it. But
get it to where you want it to be.
Yes, we took quite a long time there about Russ.
Well, rightly so, I think.
Yeah, too right. It's actually, one thing was quite funny. I was seeing people rate him in their list of who the best Primarks are.
Are we talking like looks of model?
Yeah, and Angron again was coming up the top on a lot of people's lists, which is quite cool to think how long ago was Angron?
Yeah, well, the first one.
Yeah, and it's still coming up as a top. Ferris was quite low down on a few of them. I was like, no, you're wrong.
But I think it depends if you've actually painted it, if you've actually looked at it, because when you study them in detail, you fall in love with different parts that you may not have noticed before.
Yeah, and the big thing with Russ now is, fingers crossed, at the weekend, we're going to get a proper 360 view of the painted model.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I don't know if they're taking camera guys over there, but it'll be really great to see these, a decent quality 360 view of the model, so you do get a better view of what's going on with it. But yeah, as we mentioned, Prospero. So what do you think of the leaked image of the White Dwarf?
Well, it got me very excited. And extremely excited, but then I started looking at the bank account thinking, right, 2 boxes minimum, and then start work from there. But
you're already going for 2 boxes minimum.
Already 2 boxes minimum.
Why is that?
I'm that sad, but that I think it was a good comedy YouTube video around a while ago that said, well, yeah, but I need one to keep, I need one to open, I need one to play with.
So why are you looking at 2 specifically for the marks of armour or the custodians?
Yeah, well, I'll buy one just to keep it. So I've got it. I've got a Petrellic Calf that I haven't opened, so that'll just stay. So I'll get one just purely for that, but then I'll get one to open and utilise bits and pieces out of it, definitely.
Okay, so why are you having one that you just save?
Because it's in our hobby nature, isn't it?
Yeah, but what's the point?
Collectors and hoarders.
But what's the point? See, I've broken this to a point now where I'm like, if I'm not using it, that's money sitting there.
See, I'm very
and
good at that
space.
with everything else, with all the models, other models I've got. You know, if I'm not using parts, or I'm happy to bin them, give them away, etc. However, I have got this. The one thing I've got with the Heresy is just wanting to collect it all, and it's with the black books and things. I see these as additions to that.
That's not healthy, man. That's not healthy. Okay, cool. Yeah, certainly I will be getting it for the show as much as anything else, but I do want to get my hands on it, see what they do with it. I'm not going to get too involved in the other rumours because, whatever. It'll be out soon. Whatever value as soon is, that's November's White Dwarf, so we're looking around the start of November, end of October for the actual box release. Fingers crossed. We've seen Custodes on there. We've seen Space Wolves. I'm not going to get into who else is around. I think the models from a very blurry picture look intriguing. I have every faith that they're going to be good. Well, the character on the front, lots of speculation who it is. All I know is Laurie Golding's stated categorically it isn't Bjorn the Fell-Handed. So if it turns out to be Bjorn the Fell-Handed, then he's lied. So we can blame him. In fact, I'll try and find his actual quote because it's online, so anyone can read it. That's definitely not Bjorn. There we go. Right, so that's written down on the internet. Brilliant. Which kind of leads to, at the end of the day, Betrayal at Calth had two named characters in it, neither of which was a major character from any of those sets. So there's no reason why this wouldn't be similar if we work on a logical pattern.
Yeah.
Plenty of scope then to allow Bjorn to be done further down the line, because fortunately they're not doing him yet because he's not a major deal at Prospero. I think people would be cheated if Bjorn wasn't done properly. And in the same way that I'm not 100% sure that's Araman of the plastic model we saw. I believe it could come from this box. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be long for us to wait and see. I want to get the game. I want to play it. I really want to look at the models up close because, as we've always said, a picture taken with a reflection on the wrapping it's in doesn't really. You can't really comment on that because it's an ill-informed comment.
Yeah.
But it has started to kind of like, okay, there's a time. We're on the timer now. So it's going to be really cool because
obviously the things we know now is it's definitely happening. It's coming out. We've got some rough idea of what might be in the box, and it's a ticking clock until we actually get to see it properly.
Yeah, and because it's Prospero, it does suggest that they're going to try and link in the book with it as well, which will be, and that's almost more exciting.
Yeah, and in some ways, almost way more expensive.
Yeah, too right. And that's part of the nature of the beast with the Heresy as well, is we don't get the releases every month that 40k do.
Yes,
so
that's true. And it's been very light of late as well, hasn't it? So.
Yeah, and particularly with rule sets, the game doesn't necessarily change that quickly. So a book coming out like Inferno, it's a big thing for the 30k community. And it will always be a big thing when they do a book because of the how long it takes by nature. So, yeah, exciting times. Certainly, I'm going to have a quick chat with Element Games and see what we can do there. But hopefully, I know I'll be ordering mine from them. I'm sure they'll be doing the same 20% discount on getting there quick because sometimes it's not so much that they run out because, as I say, Betrayal at Calth, they ordered a shed load of copies after that first pre-order weekend because they realised just how many they were going to sell. But there might be a case of struggling to get one initially until the second kind of shipment goes out.
Second wave almost of.
Yeah, because every company is going to get so many to give out. Your local GW stores, they'll be allocated so many copies. There is a chance there'll be a run on it. You never know.
And if GW aren't mass producing loads of them right as we speak, I'll be very surprised.
Oh, they will be. They know how many Betrayal at Calth they sold. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to have similar numbers of this. And there's no reason why Betrayal at Calth was sold, so it wasn't limited. it was just a certain number of print runs. That's a very different thing. You know, all board games are done in print runs because of the cost of making them. And books, in fact, as well. So, yeah, they'll have worked out a line, and essentially what I think they'll do is they'll do print runs until it becomes to a point where they're like, okay, it's run out of steam a bit, and let it go. So all those people who are waiting for Betrayal at Calth, yeah, it's, you know, I'm kind of getting mixed up in what I'm saying, but it's, you know, there's plenty of life in it whilst they're selling loads of them.
Yeah, it wasn't one of those ones of, well, if you're not here the first through the door and they all sell out, sorry, you're out of luck, you're not going to get one.
No, I mean, think how Betrayal at Calth, you know, you can still go and buy it. Still copies on shelves. And we're, 2 years down the line? Is that right?
Yeah, there's a copy in my local GW.
Yeah, you know, so even with that, they're still going to make sure there's plenty of, you know, they didn't run it down from a while ago to make sure people buy this. Whether they end up taking some off the shelf because of this, that's a different story. But also, that's why we saw the individual boxes when we did, was because it was like, right, okay, something else is coming out. Betrayal at Calth won't be on the shelf because of running out of stock or because of replacing it as a product. We put them on there, which are marked up, you know, as individual boxes are always going to be. Betrayal at Calth, remember, was a discounted set. If Prospero's less than £100 or about 100, £110, say, whatever the box is called, you're looking at third parties to be 20% off that. So, you know, 80 odd pounds. That's a discount. That's not GW's pricing. That's GW giving all those models as a discount from their normal pricing structure. So,
yes.
Yeah. And it's going to sell like, you know, hotcakes. And it'll be cool. Will we get loads and loads and loads of Custodes armies straight afterwards? Or maybe we do.
Yes.
Is that necessarily a bad thing? I don't necessarily think so.
It's quite clever what they're doing, because in that White Dwarf, it states on the front there, rules for Custodes in 40k. So clearly it's a good way of, you know, they're not just, with the Betrayal at Calth set, it was, if you play 40k, do you want some different looking Marines? But with this, it's a case of, well, if you buy this box, you could start a new army.
Yeah. GW's biggest market is still 40k, will be 40k for, you know, probably forever. Right? 40k is what pays all the bills at GW. Haven't got any stats, but certainly it does. It's always been that way. Maybe not as bad as the old days when it was, you know, 85% of all GW sales was Space Marines, all that jazz. But you have to sell stuff for 40k. People who play 30k in general used to play 40k or still play 40k. There's all that in there. So having these models out and not having them available to use in 40k is just doesn't make much business sense. Custodes are still around in 40k. We've got they've just launched the 13th Black Crusade series of tie-in books and novels and whatever else, however else is going to go with it. If ever there was a time for the Custodes to come out and fight again, this is it. So again, it makes sense for them to do that there as well. So, yeah, it makes sense to me. In some ways, some you know, we've had this discussion again about, you know, 40kers playing 30kers and do we want more 40kers in 30k? Well, I think the people that 30k players are worried about are the ultra competitive tournament players, who I don't think will find the events they want in the 30k community. In general, we don't have those events. They're not. You know, there are some tournament-based events, but not many. So having a 40k rule set for Custodes means that there's another. You know, there's even less of a reason for them to come to 30k.
Yeah. If they think they're amazing and broken and whatever else, and they want to use them, then they can still just use them in the 40k universe that they play a lot in. Yeah,
but
sometimes with that, the rule set's going to have to be quite diverse, because 40k is a bit of a different animal now, isn't it? With some of the way the rules work and the...
Why can't they have two rule sets?
No, I'm saying they can. That's what I mean. That they could look at it and say, "Oh, well, I'll play these as the 40k style."
They might do, they might not. We know Forge World have been working on Custodes rules. They talked about playtesting them and stuff. These rules that are in the White Dwarf, I don't know where they've come from. We know, this isn't GW just doing it. They utilise Forge World because they are the same company. They do utilise their expertise and stuff. While they may not have been designed by Forge World, the models, there's potential for rules overlap, to have a chat, to do all that kind of stuff. I don't know, but in general, I've got faith. I think it'll be pretty awesome. I'm quite interested to see if the game's an expansion to the game that was Betrayal at Calth, or whether it's a new game.
So you mean like the same sort of way it plays?
Yeah. Yeah, so if it uses the same rule set, you could have what's called a standalone expansion. So something that can be played by itself or added into an original ongoing set of rules, or whether it's a completely new set of rules, completely different game that can't be conjoined with Betrayal at Calth. I don't know.
Interesting, actually.
Yeah. That's something that's going to be quite interesting to see. But yeah, it's going to be exciting times. It really is. And hard on the wallet, and I've got so much stuff I need to buy. I just put 160.
Especially as a Space Wolf player, it's going to be horrendous for you, isn't it?
Well, no. In some ways, no, because I'm, as I say, breaking habits. I'm quite happy to kind of go, I really want that, but I've got so much to paint at the moment, it's not going to get painted anyway. So I can put things off. I've recently put in I talked about it in the intro, I'm sure, but, spent 160 quid at Forge World this week on buying some stuff for my Mechanicum, choo-choo train and things. So it's like, oh wow, I've put 160 quid in, but that's the most I've spent on Forge World in a long time. I picked up the odd character here and there at events, but I haven't actually spent a huge amount of money on the hobby. Because I'm like, oh, you know what? Oh, actually, yeah, all my Mechanicum I've got pretty much are painted now, and I need some more stuff that I want to take to the campaign weekend. I'll buy some more stuff. I've got shed loads of Space Marines that are going to be Space Wolves. I've got a Cestus Assault Ram, 2 Storm Eagles sat on the side. One of the Storm Eagles is pretty much finished. I've got my Leviathan Dreadnought that I need to finish with his drop pod. I've got another drop pod that needs to be made. I've got all their vehicles that need to be done. I've got plenty to be getting on with. So I can buy the Space Wolves slowly and feed them in slowly. And that's alongside all the Age of Sigmar stuff. I actually need to spend a little bit of money on my Age of Sigmar stuff as well. So that helps me slow down my purchasing, which means I'm not so liable to be caught into the impulse purchasing. Because I'm like, you know what? I don't need to get that brand new Space Wolf unit this week. So I don't buy it this week. So I don't get hooked into whatever else came out that week as well.
Yeah.
Dave Witek started doing this with Age of Sigmar back when I was playing Warhammer. You're allowed your army, and you buy whatever comes out for your army, because most of us do that. But anything else, I leave it for 2 or 3 weeks. And it's amazing how much stuff you look at and you go, yes, I want it. And 2 weeks down the line you say, yeah, that's cool. We've said before, GW, their release schedule used to work on impulse purchasing. Still does to a certain extent. Because it does work. That's why all the chocolate sweets are at the counters in shops. Yeah. Impulse is such a huge thing in marketing. And in fact, looking at what GW released this week and moving on forwards, it looks like we're getting more releases. The Genestealer Colts for 40k are stunning.
Oh, amazing.
Stunning. So these were released, and I know it's 40k, but bear with me. It's an old school army that a lot of us old boys are like, oh yeah, remember them.
Nostalgia sells.
Some stunning models, all based around the similar thing to the Death Watch box set that came out. We get down, when you see the most humanoid of the Genestealer Colts in the neophyte hybrids in their orange suits, they could almost be a penal legion just as they are. And then next week they're bringing out, or will have been released, it's the tank. It's just, I can't remember what it's called now, but I did retweet a photo of it. The Goliath truck just looks fantastic. And I know in 3 weeks' time I'm going to have forgotten about this because of so much other awesome stuff that's been out. But if I was thinking about doing a Cults militia list, I'd be doing Abhumans, and it would be these guys.
Yeah, and I was completely thinking of... Remember we spoke a while ago about me possibly doing some Penal Legion in with my Night Lords. And I like the look of these models, and now these are coming out, I'm pretty much sold on. That's going to be a bolt-on for my Night Lords army. Yeah,
they're awesome. They fit so well. I believe, there's so the new White Dwarf's going to have a section on twinning your Imperial Guard with the Genestealer cults as well. So you can, very easily to model some of the kind of the Vox units and other bits like that, or taking these heads, putting them on more standard Imperial Guard units. You might not go for the full Tyrannid style conversions, but there's no reason why you can't. And some of the heavy drill teams, I can't remember what they're called, but they look fantastic with their helmets on and things like that. And you could just do simple head swaps with some of the Genestealers, and it will still be a weird abhuman thing.
In fact, I don't know if you saw on Twitter, Darren Latham, who worked on these Tyranny, the Genestealer cults. He sent a tweet out earlier today, and it said, fun fact, all the parts for the Genestealer neophytes are the same head socket and arm sockets as the Skitarii.
Oh,
just saying. So what's great there is they're making those kits easily interchangeable.
Yeah, definitely. So buying Skitarii and mixing them with them is, so that's the neophytes, the one we were talking about.
Yes.
So you've got, buy a box of them, box of Skitarii, not cheap for 10 models, but a lot of options.
And the Skitarii, talk about fitting to 30k perfectly. Yeah,
absolutely. These guys fit in anyway, there's so much character in them as well, but definitely, for me, it's painting time. I just don't have the painting time. It's not so much the money, although I don't have much money at the moment, but I just couldn't paint a shed load of models like that. But there's so much stuff you can do. Mixing them with either the Adeptus Mechanicus stuff or Imperial Guard stuff, or both, is very easily done. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing a few of those armies appear on the interwebs.
Definitely. The fact that now they're making these plastic kits interchangeable, I know that it's not hard to convert a plastic kit if you really want to, but it's just opening up so many options.
Yeah, big time. There's so many cool options as well. And talk about hitting nostalgia. And again, those Goliath transports are fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you just want, because looking at them, if I try and find them, going back to... Because, the point of a Genestealer cult is they've infiltrated a human world. If you just want to use them as something else, for any kind of transport, they got weapon mounts, but they can be taken off or added to.
Yep.
You can easily, if you get some plastic card, build up the sides if you need to. That's just a fantastic vehicle. So
I'm expecting to see a lot of good conversions.
Yeah, absolutely.
That vehicle, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I can see it being used for a lot of different things. Awesome. Anyway, we've rambled on. Shock.
Again.
Yeah. Brilliant. We'll leave that here. We'll come back and we'll be joined by Myles from Lil Legend Studios. Joining us now, we have Myles from Lil Legend Studios. Hello, Myles.
Hello.
And Neil's still with us, which is cool.
Hello, Greg.
Hello, Neil. And we're going to talk Blackshields, the wonderful units that are Blackshields.
Oh, yes. Right, to start this section, I have a very inspiring quote.
Okie dokie.
By the introduction to Blackshields in the very lovely Retribution book reads, "I shall not be by him imprinted, nor by his sin disfigured. How about that for an introduction to this section?
I think you're supposed to bring it with some relevance when you
Very
do something
weighty.
like that. Yeah, just quoting stuff, you sound a little bit like Arnold Rimmer.
Oh, no!
I look a bit like him as well.
And all the
podcast, I can look like Brad Pitt for all these people, no?
and all the charisma. But anyway, moving on. Yeah, a lovely quote there from Myles. It was Myles' idea to talk about Blackshields and kind of how you would go about deciding on a Blackshields force.
Yeah, I've always had a bit of a thing for always had a bit of a thing for them. When I've read about this, it just seemed to open up the heresy. The Blackshields, they really are your own POV character into this universe. You're not necessarily fighting for the Emperor or Horus. You could be fighting for your own clandestine reason. I know a lot of people align Blackshields with the idea of 40k renegades, that these are where the renegades come from. But I think they're slightly more complicated than that. You tend to find with Civil War conflicts, the narrative given to people, this is even parallels in our own real world, the English Civil War, for example. The narrative you give out to people, it tends to be very simplistic. So you have a black and white view of history. When the Inquisition came in the Scouring, they reduced the Horus heresy to good versus evil, Horus versus the Emperor. But the Blackshields, ironically enough, they fall into that very grey area that 30k just seems to exploit so well, especially with Forge World books.
Well,
so it's that entry that really got my imagination going.
Sure, they can do. Absolutely. They can be. Like the first thing we ever knew about Blackshields, the term Blackshields was, in 40k parlance, was Marines who fought for the Death Watch, who showed no chapter kind of loyalty and had pure black shields, and there was speculation about why. So you do have black shields that fight for each side, but you're saying personally for you the ambiguity of those in between.
Yes, again, it is Marauders for some people. It can be, for me, this is the most interesting kind of narrative thread hook that I read into it.
Cool.
I think for me, the real thing is that it opens it up to do whatever any idea you can come up with, you can fit it probably in there with Blackshields. If you've got a crazy idea for some Space Marines, Blackshields fits that slot.
Yeah, and you don't only, I'm approaching this mainly from a painting perspective. I've always wanted to do Thousand Suns in green, like in the green metallic colour. Until, if I would have put those up, I would have been slated online. I could imagine the comments raining in on me. But under the term of a Black Shield force, you can do that.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic that's been coming up a lot recently. Again, is painting and fitting into. Can't remember the terminology now. My immersion. That's right, immersion.
Right.
Which is a very strange thing when you actually start to think about it and break it down. But I understand what you're saying. It's certain people always have that hard line view of what is Legion colours, no matter what.
And even with simple colours like, black armour, some people go, well, that's not the right black.
I take it that's an in-joke, but there are. I've got my Space Wars colour scheme. I'm sure that's going to upset some people down the line, but tough. But Nova Marines are a good one from in Pharos. The Nova Marine colour scheme that is in 40k is seen in Pharos, is used until Pharos was released as a book. A lot of people would have looked down at you for painting your Marines that colour. Once Pharos was released, suddenly it's all right. And that's for different people are going to always sit on different levels of that.
And the Blackshields, I think it almost gives you permission to be a bit more adventurous in your colour schemes, especially when applying it to the 30k universe. In 40k, you do pretty much what you want. You have chapters, do whatever you want. In 30k, it feels a bit more regimented, but under the Blackshield banner, you can just let your imagination ride over whatever you like. If there's something in the Forge World range you like the look of, like a Raven Guard, Like, I really like the look of Raven Guard, but I don't think I have it in me to paint another black army for myself. So if I could paint them yellow, for example, the Canary Legion, maybe, quartered with blue.
I mean,
but it just lets your imagination run free.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you don't have to paint black because they specifically state that they do actually colour their armour depending on what surface they're on, because they're a stealth legion. So there is always that, but we're talking about going away from, just being open to your Hello Kitty Marines. I take it you're going to be doing now, yeah. See, there's always a line.
Raven Guard iconography.
Yeah. And see that, and if anyone wants to do that as a commission for Myles, the first person gets 50% off. Isn't that right, Myles?
Oh, it's been said online now. I can't gainsay it.
Yeah.
Believe everything you hear online.
Yep.
Excellent. So your driving force for you wanting to talk about and possibly do a Blackshields force is actually the painting opportunities?
For me, yeah, it's always that initial entry into a new army. I've always had a vision of doing 1,000 Suns in the green metallic armor. I'd love to do that, some kind of breakaway faction. But then when you read more about the Blackshields, and I'm a bit of a history buff as well, so these, especially with civil wars as well, you're united under one banner, you clash up against the next, and after a couple of battles, couple of campaigns, these poor little farmers used to find themselves in the middle of nowhere under banners they didn't recognize, pillaging villages that they just had no idea where they were. They were kind of lost in the tumult of war. And these kind of emotional hooks, again, you could I'm getting a bit all over the place with this, but this kind of daffer of ideas floating in the air that you just kind of pick and choose from, and then you could pin them down into something more substantial.
Okay, cool. Neil, have you ever thought of doing a Blackshields force?
Probably not, but then again, I think I'm always quite drawn to the main legions. I think mainly from a colour scheme point of view, I'll look at some sort of reference material, whether it be a piece of artwork or a in production miniature, and then want to replicate that or make it better in some way. So
sure.
Until I see something, I mean, there's been some great colour plates in the books with some of the Blackshield stuff. And I think if one of those sort of jumped out at me and I thought, wow, that looks amazing, I may want to replicate it and paint something. But at the moment, there's too many other things to do.
Sure. So you just copy things.
Yes, pretty much. My life is copying what someone else has already done.
So for me, if I was to do a Blackshield force, I would probably lean towards traitors turned loyalist or loyalist turned traitors, and making a force in that respect. But we can look at people want to represent the maybe the Wolfen or the Raven Guard. We were talking about the Raven Guard, the whatchamacallums from them, and the various other kind of potentially not straightforward. So you could even do some skin change 1,000 Suns in some way. That's quite a popular one to draw people into the Blackshields.
I think it's also quite good that when you've got some of the legions where people are a bit, where they'll sort of say, word bearers, there weren't any loyalist word bearers. You could play on that as well a bit, couldn't you? You could say, well, these guys are Blackshields, but they were word bearers, but now they're fighting for the Emperor, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. You could say, the word bearers just assumed they were dead because their ship never reached the meeting point where actually they went off sideways, before the heresy started, obviously, depending on how you want to fit it in. But
and you can even do something classic, like Lunar Wolves, very popular in the books, very popular in the background. The Blackshields army list gives you license to do a Lunar Wolves army.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And there's lots of scope. I'm just thinking about kind of the way I've seen Blackshields talked about is, as you say, either people have come up with a scheme they want to put in, or they've read a story about some particular force that they then want to replicate on the table. And even then, on the gaming side of it, there's a number of people who've looked at the rules and just gone, they're cool. Or even that's a bit different. And I think Willard's Blackshields that he brought to Taka and Reaver was very much a combination of that, with other stuff mucked in. But, he took best part of 100, infantry troops. And part of that reason, I think, was because he thought that with this heavy tank meta that will still exist with the new points, that actually you're wasting all their big guns to a certain extent. And that was certainly a factor, I'm pretty sure, in his choosing.
Well, in the big Forge World book, they seem to be broken down into 3 main factions. So under the headings, we have the Steadfast, the Turncoat, and the Renegade. This seems to be the switch between legions. So you have loyalists, traitors, loyalists. Then you have the Disavowed. So it starts off, a truth that sits ill with many a party to such knowledge, and not all Blackshields were the sons of traitor Primarchs. So that's quite a cool entry. And then the Damned, which is my personal favourite, where these people are just scooped up from medieval worlds, or they're just scooped up from worlds. They're injected full of this, full of gene seed, and they're sent out into the universe with no real knowledge of how they were created, or any kind of legion identity, and they just sent to reave the galaxy.
Yeah, to be a bomb just dropped into a certain area.
So they are a biological killing machine.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the one great thing that Forgewood are good at doing, especially with these books, is it really does invoke a lot of great ideas when you read these entries sometimes. You can just read an army list sometimes and think some entries, and it suddenly starts forming in your mind this whole backstory and what you can do with it and all those sort of things.
Yeah, and now it's been codified in a book. We've had the E-Short Blackshield released, which, details a specific instance of some Blackshields. But, yeah, there's potential for them to appear a little bit more as we're going through the Black Library books as well. So there's potential for even more background and fluff to come out to inspire.
So, Myles, with your theoretical Blackshields army or something you'd like to create, what would be your starting points of how you go about it? Where would you look to first?
So initially, like all great ideas for the Forge World, look in the Black Book or find a narrative hook in one of the books, something that just speaks to you. Reading through the sections, I just had a very clear idea of 1,000 Suns Legionnaire, but in green armor. So that's the kernel of the idea.
The first thing that came to you was the colour scheme almost. That was the first.
Yes, that was the first thing that popped into my head. I just had a very clear image of that, and I knew I wanted to find a way of representing that on the battlefield, or go about like doing a bit of list hammering.
Okay.
Sure, so you've got a colour scheme idea and maybe working through ideas what you want for your army. Did you then move to the fluff of why they're green?
So this is the nice part. When you get that initial image in your head, when you get that spark of inspiration, you could go back over all the books that you've read 100 times before. You could pick up on those very individual details, the throwaway worlds that are mentioned in some of the books, or some of the conflicts that may not be expanded on, but exist there. So for me, 1,000 Suns Legionnaires, they're seekers of lost knowledge or arcane knowledge, and their remit would send them all across the universe. So, for my idea, 1,000 Suns Legionnaire, just a single cohort was sent on to the outer edges of Imperial space to investigate some unusual phenomena with these 3 suns orbiting a planet. They had some kind of arcane relationship with the warp, and the light of these 3 suns actually bleached their armor the green color. And when they came back into the universe, they found that contradictory reports of Magnus turning traitor, Magnus being killed, Magnus killing the Emperor. This is a time where no knowledge is really secure, and for 1,000 Suns Legionnaire, that's deeply unsettling. So what do you do in that situation? And that's my very first starting point. I am that character in that point of view in this crazy universe that's just absolutely turned upside down.
Cool. As I said, mine would probably be from reading the books and seeing a traitor, a member of a traitor legion that held steadfast. So as you said, maybe some lunar wolves. And then I'd work from there onto, okay, I've got the idea. How am I going to paint them? What am I going to put in the army? And as I said, I've seen people read through particularly the wrought by war rules saying, that's really cool. How am I going to use them? So they're all, I think they're pretty much the three ways that you're going to end up deciding on a Blackshields force. But as you say, whichever way it takes you, you do tend to find that the story and the paint scheme do work their way in, just maybe in different stages.
Which is probably to say that probably happens more than most other legions as well. I think when a lot of people may look to do Sons of Horus Legion or Iron Hands or whatever, they've almost that they don't take into consideration probably the colour scheme or other things like that as much. They probably look first off at list entries and start trying to build the force from there, I'd imagine.
I think there's a pretty even split, to be fair. I think you can find people who are just like, I've read all the books about, say Space Wolves forever. I'm doing Space Wolves. And there's the blokes who are like, no, I really love the Iron Warriors old rules from 40k, love their new rules, I'm playing them. And then guys who are like, yeah, particularly Thousand Suns, the red scheme's always been something that I wanted. So I think you do find that all the way through.
I must admit, I have played quite a few armies, and I played one at Attack and Reaver where the opponent said, well, this is the army out of X book.
Yeah.
Where they've read that book and they've read all the details of that story and then tried to pick out all the units that were in a particular battle and then replicated that in their own army.
Yeah, and there's a myriad of ways of getting to an army. So, Myles, you've got your colour scheme, you've got your story, your reason why they're doing what they're doing and why they are what they are. Is it at that point you turn to the wrought by war rules?
Yeah, as much fun as it is collecting a whole heap of models, paint them all to a very nice standard, and then put them on unless you have them in some kind of playable fashion, it almost feels like pointless doing all the painting. You need some kind of structure to it to be able to play with it. I tend to break up the hobby into painting, list building, and actually playing the game. And unfortunately, I don't play the game as much as I'd like to. But list theory, I love it. I love being an armchair general. So yeah, it is at this point that you look at the wrought by war section, which is split up into 4 parts.
Yeah, so just before you start, so wrought by war is a representation of how your army fights, the reasons why they fight the way they do, and its benefits and disadvantages for taking that style of fighting, just to make sure everyone's aware of what we're talking about. But yeah, there's four sections to choose from.
Yep. There are certain limitations when you do take a Blackshield force. For example, you can't use anything like drop pods or any kind of Legion artillery, Legion assets that require specialist units to bring them back up into orbit. They tend to do a lot of flyby gun-ins with Thunderhawk gunships. So you'll need to read and structure your army around these guidelines, and it does play into the background of the force. Yeah,
they don't have the support structures that legions do, so you can't ever have more vehicles than you do infantry units, and as you said, things like drop pods are out of the question because they take too much maintenance and care for picking them up, and some limitations on characters as well. But yeah, absolutely.
What are the limitations on the characters?
So a single Legion console.
Yep, that's it. So that might make it a little bit difficult creating my librarian force, 1,000 Suns, but it may feed into it because there's only a singular librarian there conducting the cohort. The rest could just be orbiting around him.
And not every 1,000 Suns was a Psyker, to be fair. So it's there's plenty of scope in most stories for that to happen as well. And you also can't take a Legion Praetor because they have their own variation of that entry.
Yeah, they're very evocatively titled Reaver Lord.
Indeed. So yes, they're wrought by wars. We have, I'll do the first one, Death Seekers. So these are the guys who are mentally wounded to the point where they're just going to kill, maim, burn till they die, basically. So like half the Iron Hands that survived Isfahan are supposed to fall into this section. They just went to destroy as much of the enemy as possible. And for those rules, you're getting Feel No Pain 6 up, don't have to take pinning tests, but you may not voluntarily fail morale checks and must pass leadership tests not to end closer to your enemy. So it represents, the essentially you're talking about slayers, like troll slayers from Warhammer, or
Actually, just going to get them.
yeah, there's a death wish on these guys, which is really awesome.
I like those guys already.
Yeah, it's pretty nihilistic, isn't it? I mean, the name Death Seekers, they're not a happy bunch of people.
No, absolutely.
Unlike the next group, Orphans of War, which are the cheeriest of them all. Having seen betrayal, atrocity, and unthinkable carnage at the behest of distant and caring masters, these warriors are hardened veterans who have survived against all odds and now trust only to the man next to them in the line of battle.
Yep. These are guys who, yeah, as you said, these guys have had enough of the war, of their, fighting for stuff that they don't necessarily have any real vested interest in anymore.
Yeah, when I read this, I immediately thought of, say if you're a praetor or an ex-legion, you've crusaded under the emperor himself, you're all invested in the Great Crusade, you get flung out into the middle of nowhere, and then you meet up with a Primarch, say, like Angron, who doesn't share that sense of a unified humanity, and you come to find that he's turned traitor after however long he's been in charge. You wouldn't really feel compelled to carry on following him. Once one treachery's occurred, why not 2, 3, or 4 more?
Yeah. My first thought was those guys who fought together years before and then find themselves on the other side of the battlefield wondering, why am I shooting at my best mate? And kind of meeting in the middle and just going, this is crazy. War's crazy. Well, let's
have a game of footy.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, let's go and just sit in a corner away from all this and, let them sort it out amongst themselves. But yeah, anything, immediately there's 2 instances where you can build a story around. Yeah, and these guys, they get leadership bonuses when they're near each other and reroll fail to hit rolls of a 1, and they can't. They never rely on each other's leadership though, which is cool. And if they fail morale checks, more of them die.
Yeah, I love the last rule. The name of the last rule is no gods, no masters. I mean, Alan Bligh he's got a turn of phrase to him, hasn't he?
Well, it's not just Alan Bligh. There are other writers as well. So
Alan Bligh and co.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more than just. In fact, I'll try and look that up while we're talking. But yeah, I mean, Alan Bligh's heads it up. I don't know if their names are written on here.
No, Andy Hall contributes quite a bit. But sorry if you came up with that turn of phrase and you haven't been credited.
Yeah, Andy Hall's been heavily involved. John French has been involved, and since the new hiring, there's a couple of other guys there who I can't remember the names of, so apologies. But Alan Bligh does head up kind of that section of it, from what I'm aware. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there are some great turns of phrase in here. Names. Yeah, so they can't have chaplains or agents of the Imperium, agents of the War Master, and cannot ally with any Space Marines because these are outsiders. They've given it all up. But they do prefer. They do gain the preferred enemy character special rule. So all their characters have got preferred enemy of other characters, which is pretty sweet.
Yes, very nice.
Yeah, nice little bonus. The Outlanders. We have your woman, Outlander. They are... Well, yeah, to be honest, I've probably described these a little bit within the others, because the Orphans of War are slightly different. These are the ones who did look at war and just go, no, it's stupid, you're all killing yourself.
These guys are very much in it for themselves.
Yeah,
they
I
almost feel like space pirates.
That's the difference. It's like
They're a bit more egotistical.
the first ones are like, why are we doing this? Second ones are like, why are we doing this? We can profit off this.
Plunder and booty.
Yeah, and it's the difference between we're going to fight on and we're going to do stuff to, no, if it's all going to go to rack and ruin, we might as well profit out of it.
Yeah, it feels like the Orphans of War almost have that sense of
Honour, they're keeping that honour.
yeah, heroic idealism still attached to them, but the Outlanders like, nah, I don't know that. I just want as much stuff as I can possibly get.
Yeah, and these are very much where people look at the Renegades.
Yeah.
So, they're having to keep half their detachment's infantry units enter reserve, or may enter reserve, and by deep strike, which is cool, but it's slightly less reliable if they mishap. They take extra wounds. They do have access to the Xenos Deathlock because, again, there's no ties to any creed that they've had before. So it's more a case of, we'll use whatever we want.
That weapon will do.
Indeed. And then their real downside is once half the units are dead, then you're starting to roll morale tests for everyone just to run away because they're mercenaries.
Oh, that's so thematic.
It is cool. It's like, no, this is costing us too much.
I haven't personally played any of these choices yet, but if anybody has, write in, let us know. Are you disappointed if you lose a game or if you lose units when that happens? Because even though it's disappointing, you just think, oh, God bless them. They're in it for themselves, even in the game.
Yeah. To be honest, I think if you're one of the more kind of game-focused people, I don't see you taking the Outlanders rules in an attempt to win the game. I think it will lean because of that rule, which could be quite crippling. I think it is going to be the people who are more about fluff anyway.
Yeah, it feels like that very much for all these choices. It is very much like a narrative-led.
Don't know. I think I think with the others particularly, there's ways of playing them. And
what nasty combos can you come up with?
I think the Shadow of Oblivion is quite a big, impactful rule. So it's the one that stands out to me as like, whoa, that's hard to get around. So I do think that your more game-focused players will slide past that one. So you will tend to get the people who are like, oh yeah, cool, that unit ran away.
Yes, my unit ran away again.
The sort of players you want to play.
Yeah, like all the
ones who like losing.
Yeah. Like the World Eaters players who are like, well, I shouldn't charge, but I'm World Eaters. Very much those kind of guys, which is cool. And then the last one is the Chimerae, which are the either experiments or the things that went wrong or what have you. These are no longer just normal Space Marines. They are something else, whether it's physically altered, mentally altered, or some other way altered.
These guys are creepy.
So these are your Wolf and your, what do they call the Raven Guard? Is it the guys that suffer in Deliverance Lost? I can't remember for the life of me what they're called.
Something like the Ravens born out of the guys.
Yeah.
For some reason I'm thinking Raptors, but I think that's wrong.
Raptors. Yeah, sounds about right. No, yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, I think it might be right. But those kind of guys. So they're in there as well. And at the start of the game, before setup, you choose an option. Option 1 is everyone with the wrought by war rule gets +1 strength, +1 toughness, but -1 initiative, -1 on charge and run distances, and no sweeping advances. So represents your bulked out super dudes. Option 2, +1 weapon skill and ballistic skill, -2 leadership, which is the option I can't see me ever take. On option 3, you gain fear, fleet, and rage, but -1 ballistic skill must always make sweeping advances, which sounds like a pretty good, depending on how the way you want to build your Blackshield force, is possibly the one I'd go for. But they may not have an allied detachment at all. These guys are, they're no longer Space Marines, really.
There's something in here is written that sometimes these guys, they produce such animosity around their fellows that you find Space Marines just attack them, and they don't know why. It's just something about them that really sets them, that triggers them.
Yeah, that people can work out that they're not right. They're not Space Marines. Space Marines should look a certain way. We're talking about the Imperium, even though it's split, we're talking about the Imperium, which is inherently racist, and supremacist to a certain point,
Yeah, absolutely.
They abide mutants only when it suits their needs, like astropaths, ratlins, ogrins, and even then they don't deviate too far. So, the Jacaro is probably the furthest out that they go it's pretty much an ape. But he's really useful, so we'll make use of that.
Genius monkey, get him on board.
Yeah, so they're representing those aspects.
Your new tagline, Myles.
Oh, okay, yeah. Every time earlier in the podcast, I was trying to come up. When I go on a podcast, I'm never sure how to introduce myself. So perhaps I should just we have Myles on the podcast. So, yeah, genius monkey. That'll make me.
That'll work.
Yeah, calling yourself a genius, that's always going to go down well.
Oh no, the monkey's the genius. The monkey does the lifting. I just take the profit.
Okay, fair play. Yeah. We'll get the monkey on next time.
I could just pay him bananas as well.
Moving on. So for your 1,000 Suns per se, which of these wrought by war rules?
Right. So I'm a 1,000 Suns guy. I've come back from the outer rim of the universe in my arcane knowledge. Oh, the universe is rent. I'm automatically drawn to Orphans of War, just because I think in that scenario you're coming back into the Imperium and you do find yourself orphaned.
Sure.
So yeah, you have a coterie of brothers around you who share a similar mindset. They've been through similar experiences to you. I think Orphans of War would be the one I'd be drawn to.
You want to maintain that honour, that reason for fighting.
Yeah, for all you know, Magnus, the Imperium's gone, for all you know. There's so many in my head canon, in my fluff I have going on at the moment, there's so many overlapping, contradictory reports flooding into you that you don't know what to believe. So what do you trust? You trust your training, you trust the ideals that you fought for during the Crusade, and you just try and keep that sense of honour going forward into this very dark age.
Sure. Out of them, Neil, what do you think would appeal to you?
Very hard to say without the book in front of you.
I think Chimera are the coolest.
I think from me talking earlier about having a loyalist or traitor version of the opposite Legion, I'd lean to either Death Seekers or Orphans of War. And I think for what I was doing, I think for a loyalist turned traitor force, Death Seekers the story would have to be very different, as opposed to a traitor turned loyalist, where, everything's been ripped away from them. So I'd probably lean towards Orphans of War for that instance, but certainly be tempted by having the Fear Fleet Rage Chimera for rules and having some cool models down. Because again, that Chimera rule set allows you to model outside of the normal scope of Space Marines as well. Because all of a sudden, if you take the guys with +1 strength and toughness, you can bulk them out a bit. You can go and grab bits and pieces from anywhere you want,
I think it does open a lot of doors for kit bashing and doing crazy sort of mad Age of Sigmar bits chucked into you.
Yeah, the old mutation sprues and all that kind of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, the Death Seekers as well. I think if I was creating an army based around the Death Seekers, the thing that immediately sprung to mind was one of the worlds of Macragge being wreathed by the World Eaters or the Word Word Bearers. Too many worlds.
Yeah.
Something along Calth maybe. You're an Ultramarine. You're mustering there, and then world's just wiped out in this insane attack. And the Word Bearers, they're sacrificing your fellows, your fellow warriors, and they're just destroying civilization centers. They're sacrificing people. I think that would turn you to a pretty dark path.
Yeah, it would be a really interesting story actually to have say, survivors of Armantura, which is the first planet in Betrayal, where they're fighting in the 500 worlds that we see.
The War World, yeah.
Yeah, and to have Ultramarines who are so proud of their ability to follow structure and everything else, worn down to the point where they just become these guys who want retribution no matter the cost. You know, that's such a fall from where they were that they've become the world eaters from sitting on their pretty little world. Would be a really interesting story to tell.
For Outlanders, I'd have to model the Reaver Lord with an eye patch. I'd have to.
Grab the Ulrich the Slayer head.
Yes, yeah, or even just post someone with big green stuff.
Well, Outlanders gives you a lot of opportunity to look at, you know, for those of us who play 40k for years, who are invested in 40k, to look at a lot of the things that go on with the Renegade chapters, with, you know, even some of the Chaos chapters, because they're Renegades, you know, in the 31st millennium, you know, it's 10,000 years to go, they can do anything they want. So there's a lot of really cool little bits of pieces of information that you could fly with for the Outlanders.
And reading through all of this, it does feel like you can retrofit a lot of the 40k fluff into these. So if you are stuck for a colour scheme, say if you really like Outlanders, but you're stuck for a colour scheme, I don't know what to do. You could, the Badab war books are really great for this, with the colour plates.
Yeah.
You can have a look through there, the kind of, colour plates that are produced there, the colour schemes, and you can work out your own, and you can retrofit that fluff back into this. So if you have any Renegade Legions, you can put it back into this with the Outlanders.
Yeah, absolutely. And say even some of the Chaos colours that you see, because, as I say, because someone could start as a Pirate Lord and end up being forced into the Eye of Terror. There's absolutely no reason that can't happen. So there's huge scope. And as you say, there are 4 things here which tend to cover, you can almost make any army you want from those 4 things. It's a really interesting one.
There is one thing to say that actually, remember Greg, a while ago, we spoke about the bolter and chain sword
colour. Yeah, the colour.
Colour creator. That would be a great use of that tool, where you just really want to play around with what something looks like.
Absolutely, yeah. It's still a great tool for having a look at whether it's just down to what trim I want, what accent colour I want, to actually, do I want to go, do I want to do half and half? Do I want to do quartered? Do I want to do a crazy colour scheme? There's so much to play with on that. Yeah.
Oh no, dead air.
That's fine, it all gets edited out. So from there, we have got some equipment that is Blackshield only, or specific. First off, the Pariah armour. So where we talked about playing around with your models a lot, Pariah armour is very much part of that. Essentially, it's a lighter set of armour due to having lack of replacement bits.
It's a very nice way of putting it, all these different basic equipment seems to be Pariah Bolter, Pariah Flamer, Pariah Power Armor. Why Pariah? So Pariah's outside. It's the other. The reason why it's called Pariah Power Armor is that they find ways of improving it. They strip off pieces. They remove power cells. With bolters, they make it more efficient.
Yeah, they're either making it lighter, or they're getting around the fact that their resupply is limited. So, we've got armour that is reduced in save, particularly against strength 6 or higher, but allows them to run faster, basically. Run and shoot.
Yeah, it's nothing earth-shattering. All these options, they just give you nice, tiny little advantages with a disadvantage to it. Yeah, it gives a different feel to the army.
Yeah, so the Pariah Bolter becomes an Assault 2 weapon with reduced range, and that's about it. The Pariah Flamer is pretty cool, but it can overheat, which is awesome.
You can overpressure it.
Yeah, it's strength 4, but you can kill yourselves, which is a really cool option. And then we had that. We talked about the Xenos weaponry for the Outlanders. We've got Xenos Deathlock, which is pretty cool. I mean, we talked about these before, but it's a Strength 5, AP 5, 18-inch range, Assault 2 weapon, where any unit that suffers one or more wounds from a weapon with the Deathlock special rule must take a leadership test at the end of the shooting phase, with a negative modifier equal to the number of wounds the target unit suffered with the Deathlock effect that turn. So if you've got 4 Deathlock weapons, you kill 3 models with those Deathlock weapons, no matter what else is shot at them, they're taking a leadership test at -3. And
that's quite powerful when you think about.
Potentially, yeah.
I don't often think about leadership tests in great detail because when you get Marines, you get quite used to the fact that half the time they're all right with leadership tests. But when you're adding a -3 on there,
yeah, does that count for the whole turn? So you can charge in some Chimera with fear. Was it just for that shooting phase?
End of the shooting phase, you take that test, and it's for all Deathlock weaponry that's shot. So yes, you can by the looks of this, you can fire Deathlock weapons in from different units to achieve the result. It's, the downside is you roll 2d6, for every unit after they fire the Deathlock weapon. If the roll result is less than the number of Deathlock shots fired by the unit in that phase, the unit suffers a wound with no armor saves. So, you're rolling 2d6. Under that, you're taking a wound. If you look back at unsanctioned weaponry, any model with the Outlander special rule, which is going to be all your legions, which have got Legion, Blackshield, may take a Xenos Deathlock for +8 points a model, or exchange a Combi Bolter for +3 points a model. So you've got real flexibility in how many Deathlocks you have in a unit.
So you can really work that out to your sort of your number that you think is going to work each time for you.
Yeah, potentially. They are, as I say, they're Strength 5, AP 5, 18-inch range, Assault 2. So they're limited in range. That's a really cool rule, but it has to be your Deathlock models that are doing the wounds. So once you start piling too many units shooting into the same thing, you'll be killing them anyway with the other units, the normal bolters, things like that as well. So without seeing it on the table, I can't fully work out how effective it is, or if it's too expensive to be effective. You know what I mean?
But it could be one of those great things that catches your opponent out. Like when someone goes,
yeah,
"Oh, you've got how does that work?" And you do it and go, "Oh, yeah, that worked really well."
No matter what, you're going to have that odd game where it just goes mental.
One game in 5 is going to take off a significant unit.
Yeah, and then like every other game is just going to have pretty much no effect. You know, and then some armies have got a lot of units that are immune to psychology. So
yeah, I thought this would be really good against those big blocks of like cultists, but they often come with fearless.
A lot of people are taking cultists with the idea of having them as fearless. Yeah,
they are horrible when they're fearless.
Yeah, Solar.
Yeah,
I played a game that was not fun.
Solar Auxilia have got a number of rules to kind of ignore or utilize high leadership. But yeah, I mean it's there, and it's quite an interesting thing to see. And it would be quite cool to have a little look about how effective it was.
How would you go about modelling that? Xenos Deathlock, maybe Dark Elder weaponry?
To be honest, I'd probably look at a third party who sell the individual weapons.
Yeah.
Because you could buy a sprue of them then. And that would probably be... Mind you, it all depends how many you've got across your army, because, yeah, you could just have any alien weapon. It doesn't have to be the same alien
and I think
weapon.
I'll make loads of unique looking ones.
Yeah,
just everything looking a bit different.
Yeah, they customise them, they pimp them out.
Well, it's going to be obvious in the units. Oh, he hasn't got a bolter. He's got a Xenos Deathlock. That's fine. You know, it's not like it's like, oh, what's that? Well, everything that's not normal is a Xenos Deathlock.
Yeah, the first thing that springs to mind is the Kroot rifle.
Yeah, that did for me actually.
Yeah, they might be a bit too thin for Marines, but
you can pull out any kind of weird 40k weapon from an alien race. You can have Tau weapons, you know, because once they're in the thing, they don't represent Tau. Just represents an advanced weapon of some kind.
Yeah.
So, yeah, cool.
Lots of room for exploration there.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of bits and pieces left. We're not going to go through the Nemean Reaver, because he seems to be a lot more effective when he's a Hand of the Sigilite, when he's a Knight Error. We've got a couple more sections left. So it's the Blackshield Reaver Lord, which is like a Praetor Light with a very cool Halo Blade, which is +3 strength, AP3, melee specialist weapon, two-handed. So the +3 strength is quite nice. You're not going to be cutting Terminators down or Praetors down with AP3. But with this kind of list, you wouldn't want them to be Praetor equivalents. You don't want them to be slashing down units with that kind of efficiency.
There's no reason why a super hard dude couldn't break free. In fact, in some ways, a super hard, very charismatic dude is like almost the perfect person to break free. But you can still... or can you do it actually? I'm looking at the weapons. No, you can't take a Power Fist and the Halo Blade, can you? I'm just having a little look.
So it's
No, you can't.
two-handed weapon. Will that preclude the...
Well, I'm just thinking about utilising one or the other, choosing which one you use, but I think it just says you may exchange their power weapon for one of the following, and that seems to be the only close combat option, so it doesn't look like you can. So you are choosing particularly which weapon you have.
That's not to say this guy can't put some serious equipment on him.
It doesn't matter. Tell a lie, you can, because the second entry is about replacing their bolt pistol or chainsaw with a weapon. So yes, you can take a Halo Blade, but you could also take a Thunderhammer or a Power Fist or something if you felt...
For options.
For options wise. Yes, you're not getting the extra weapon for specialist weapons, but it gives you, usability.
That'd be a really cool modelling opportunity as well.
Yeah. As you say, he's got access to digital lasers, cyber familiar, he can mastercraft his weapon, he's got pariah armor, artificer armor, terminator armor, combat shields.
He's got rad grenades as well.
Yeah, rad grenades.
It's really cool.
He can have a deathlock as well. He can fit any of the, as he must do, he can fit any of the unit, the wrought by war rules.
Yeah, he's a very versatile character. He's only 130 points base, but he has a boatload of different options for him, so you can tailor him to how you want him to operate on the field.
Yeah, he's cool. He's cool. And at the end of the day, you want a cool dude to lead your force.
Yeah, and if you combine it with the wrought by war traits, I'm sure you could produce something really nasty, like the preferred enemy characters, with that Halo Blade and Power Fist combination.
Yeah,
that's going to catch people out.
Yeah, Halo Blade and Thunderhammer. I like that. He's cool. There's nothing stand out. He's a generic character, but there are lots of options, as we say, which is cool.
And then following along the similar kind of vein is the Blackshield Marauder Squad, which again is incredibly versatile.
Yeah, and these replace your standard troop choices. I'm trying to remember now.
Basic 2 attacks is the first thing that really leaps out.
Yeah, absolutely. So
are they more like veterans then, possibly, or
no? They're more like assault troops, but with the extra attack. You'll lose because you're 125 points for 5 models. You haven't got the options in some ways. In some ways, you've got a lot of stuff written down here, but
I guess it makes the unit more versatile in itself. Whereas
the support options you haven't got.
Yeah, with the Legion units, you can specialize them. So you can have a tactical support squad, a tactical unit. But Blackshields, they can do all the jobs. It's just in one unit.
Yeah, they can have a Rhino, an Ambulance pattern Dreadclaw, or Approaches pattern Land Raider. Right. So they're your 3 transport options. So it's not like you can, again, remember they're not getting drop pods. They're not, they're limited in those respects as well. And with the limits on number of vehicles in the force as well. So it's not just the rules we see written here, it's what else can go around them. But they're built for getting up. The basic build is for getting them into close combat. They've got bolt pistol and a combat weapon.
I have seen people equip them with heavy chain swords as well, 5 points each. That's a tasty with 2 attacks.
Yeah, and each model in the squad may take any of those options. So you can have them completely. This is where they've got a lot of options, because everyone could be armed differently. You can take 2 las cutters, a few heavy chainswords.
Yeah, a couple of pariah bolters.
If you can definitely.
Hold on. Each model in the squad may take one of the following options. Yeah, so that represents individually each model may take an option. That's right, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say yes with great conviction.
I'm going to say yes because I haven't got.
It doesn't say you upgrade the squad may upgrade
Each
their
model
bolt
in
pistols.
the squad may take one of the following options. Yeah.
So you can take a lot of different options from Astartes shotguns to auto guns to bolters and what have you.
And that also adds a lot of not only flavour into the unit, but also makes it a lot more versatile rules-wise, doesn't it? Because you can really then try and work the odds out of, okay, if I take 3 of these, 2 of these, 1 of these.
Yeah, when you add on the fact that 1 in 5 can then take a specialist weapon from a sniper rifle all the way up to say, melter gun to auto cannon to multi-melter.
Which a lot of the standard units in 30k are devoid of, aren't they? They're very sort of, your standard troops choices.
Yeah, it's
just got bolters.
Yeah, they're fluid, these units, and they can be made to handle a number of tasks. Where, as you say, tactical squads, you're relying generally on your sergeant to bring the alternative way of dealing with something.
Yes, yeah, completely.
Whereas these,
these marauder squads, you feel like you could just drop them in the middle of a bad situation and they can adapt to it.
Yeah, I've taken 2 melter guns just in case. Plus 2 of my guys have got las cutters. Awesome. A lot of variety in that, which makes for such an interesting kind of build. And from there on in, it's hard to talk about because there are so many options. It's hard to talk about how you do it.
And that's where sometimes the story can help, isn't it, really? Or the backstory that you give the unit.
Yeah, so in my thought experiments, I have my Thousand Suns equivalent of a Praetor, Thousand Suns consul, goes into the battlefield, he does a bit of exploration, and he picks up stranded different squads as he goes along. He does his own Mortalis actions. He managed to string together this very loose knit band of legionnaires who all are still along the same lines of the Great Crusade. They all have that similar kind of orphan of war feel to them. So even though they don't come from the Thousand Sun Legion, I could have one squad. I could say it could be a Space Wolves unit that have blackened and tarnished their armor because they don't believe the sacking of Prospero is necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
For another unit, it could be a Blood Angel Assault Squad.
Yeah.
You could start to build your army up. You could almost do it game by game. So you could take a very small, concentrated army, paint that up, and go on the Zone Mortalis mission, and any leftovers from your opponent, you could just build up an army from there, build up a narrative from there.
Yeah, and then, asking people to, any spare bits I need, a bolt gun from, with a Space Wolf head on it or something like that. You could just drop them into your army every now and then, because they're not proud. They'll pick up whatever they have to pick up at the end of the day. So there's lots of cool stuff that you can do with the Blackshields force.
Yeah, so ultimately, they just seem like a very versatile unit. They fit into those cracks left in the narrative that your own perspective that you maybe bring into these conflicts, that aren't necessarily written about in the books, but they give you a lot of narrative hooks. They mention places, warriors, battles that they don't necessarily expand on, because they want to leave this an open world for you to explore. And the Blackshields offer you that opportunity.
Yeah, in a codified way, as it were.
Yeah. It's strange, isn't it, how we often talk about people that want to do their own thing, but sometimes it takes Forge World or Black Library to write something down physically for everyone to accept it.
It's always the way humanity wants to be told what to do. In general, most humans want to be told what to do to a point, and we saw this with Age of Sigmar, in that it was so open that a lot of people looked at it and went, "Oh, I don't know, it's scared." And it wasn't until they brought out a more codified point system that people were like, "Oh, actually, now I can approach it." Whereas a much smaller percentage of the people were like, "No, this is brilliant. You can do whatever you want." It's really weird in that when there are rules down, people don't want to deviate from those rules either. So it's that balance between having a set of rules that allow you to break the rules.
Yeah, so for me, I had this initial idea of Thousand Suns in green armor. I didn't really know how to translate that into reality. I just had that one image, that one flimsy image. But then I come to a book like this, which somebody has gone through, codified it, and given that idea substance. So when I'm reading through here, Pariah Bolter. So in my head canon, it's starting to build texture and substance. So it's not just a Legionnaire in green armor. This is Solomus Dentius of the Thousand Suns Legion with his pack host of the Pariah Unforgiven.
Yeah, and 30k is slightly different in that it is a semi-historical game. So there are people who do want that immersion to be, a major thing for them, which is a completely different story. But they can therefore accept it into their head and play it when it's done that way. Whereas before the Blackshields were a thing, to say that these guys just split off, they would have trouble with it because we haven't seen that, and so it's not real.
Yeah, or even mixing armor marks. I can see this Blackshield Assault Legionary. He has mixed Mark II, Mark III armor. I know a lot of people don't necessarily like mixing marks of armor up.
Which is crazy, because they'll go and buy Mark V, which is mixed marks of armor. But yeah, I know what you mean. But they like to buy Mark V armor as a thing. But yeah, I think we've done a decent section there. If you do have any feedback, you do have any ideas of your own, things you think we missed out, then let us know. And,
or if you've ever played a Blackshield force using the Outlanders rule, the Shadow of Oblivion, and you've had a unit run off the board, please tell us your experience.
Yeah, any of that, absolutely, because it is something I've only seen Willard playing one, and I haven't really heard about many either. Haven't specifically looked for it, but I haven't heard about many.
I haven't seen any either, which is interesting. I haven't seen any many Blackshield forces out there.
Do you think Forge World will develop the rule set slightly for them, or do you think they'll just leave it as it is?
Not a huge amount.
I think this is more of like a standalone kind of thing.
It's a quick and easy way to allow people to step outside the boundaries of the legions. Their focus will be on the legions. They've still got plenty of work to do on that, and they will have for quite a while. And then you've got the Mechanicum, then you've got the Solar Auxilia, then you've got whatever else comes along that line. Much like the militia and cult list, I think it's just there. Knock yourself out. Not to say they won't review it a little bit, but I don't think it will be a major concern.
Now, we've all bought lots of Betrayal of Half box sets, and we all have lots of leftover plastic marines. If you did want to create just a small Zone Mortalis force, but you weren't sure which legion you'd like to go for, why not go for a Blackshield force?
Yep, absolutely.
It's a great one for spare bits, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I do with these last few
alternative
Marines.
Miniature companies. There's lots you can do with that. Go really outside the boundaries of the Legion structures.
And if there was a model in the Forge World range you did like the look of, like a Contemptor Dreadnought or anything along those lines, bring it in. You could just buy it, paint it up in your colour scheme, and away you go.
Yeah, there's so much scope. Brilliant. Well, thank you for coming on, Myles.
That's okay. I wasn't sure whether you're talking to Neil or not then, but yeah, that's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on. Always a pleasure to talk some heresy.
Yeah, I try not to thank Neil too often.
I never get thanks.
It's your job.
Yeah,
fine.
I'm the whipping boy.
That's it. Brilliant.
You're the ape in this relationship. You're the one getting fed bananas.
I'm a genius ape.
You're the genius ape.
There's no genius. Anyway, we'll leave it there and we'll come back and close the show out. And there we go. That was the wonderful Myles. And we've done the Blackshields again.
Again, yes.
Yeah, that was pretty cool, I felt.
Yeah, I thought, hopefully it had some value in there. Yeah. They took it from a different angle than last time. It was very much sort of
rules
going
and stats.
To the rules.
Yeah, we did go over similar bits, but there was more of a focus to it this time, which was quite cool. Yes, excellent stuff. Before we go anywhere, I was contacted by Escalation Painting. So this is the event Escalation Rises, a Horus Heresy campaign weekend in Southampton at the Jury's Inn. And this actually sold out in the time between getting court holder. But we were talking, I mentioned them last week about the Southampton event that sold out and then put on extra tickets.
Yes.
So they sold out again pretty quick.
Blimey.
So 42, I think, is the number.
That's a great number.
There is some chat that if they do get a lot more interest, there's potential to go further, but that's not certain by any means. But it looks quite cool. So I know Southampton, Portsmouth, there's quite a few players down that way. So, but it's if we can get a lot of 30, 40 man events going around the country, that's the 40k scene in the UK was running a lot of 30, 40 man events just because of the space of the venues they were using. So, I'm not saying we're as big as that, but
that's fantastic.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Quite nice to see actually. I was reading their events pack and I think they may have read mine again, which is cool. But where I said it last time for the Cheltenham guys and this guys, they're changing it. So it's not just like taking a pack and copying it. They're adapting the bits they've seen. What's good for me, having written one and seen people kind of influenced by it, is to see them taking it a different way. So I'm now looking at theirs going, oh, right, that's interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah, maybe. So it's almost like everything just feeds in and feeds in. So it all becomes new stuff to steal for your own event another time.
Well, yeah, it's just like, someone else's take on it, that, they can improve a little bit, change a little bit, and then if everyone does that, you get a very organic sort of document, don't you?
Yeah, the last thing I want to see is like the same event everywhere.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because that does get dull. But they haven't got anything in here about how they're running the games too much. They've got pre-arranged first game, which is what I was going to do, and possibility for grudges through the event as well, which is something that I want to bring more into, I think, because when you're travelling, I was watching a Warhammer event up in Stockport the weekend, and it's 5 hours at the best of times to get to Stockport, and every now and then on a Friday that'll be 8 hours easily.
Yeah.
I mean easily. So when you're travelling that far, taking time off work to do it, what have you, and there's someone, say, coming down from Scotland for it, you're not going to meet them very often, like maybe once or twice a year doing this. So if two people were desperate to get a game on, why not let it happen?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Because it's not a tournament, you're not affecting other results by doing it per se. So,
or even if you walk around the tables, you see an army that you really want to play.
Yeah. Well, that happens at Warhammer World quite a lot. We were sat at the event we went to. We were sat and Joe was talking to a guy and they were talking about their armies. And Joe was like, oh yeah, I'd love to play that. And the bloke was like, I've never played your army. I would love to play yours. And that was it. Awesome. So yeah, no, it's really cool. Plenty of awards to be given out. Again, a lot of sports awards, which is groovy. And what else did I see? There was something else I saw here. Oh yeah, they're doing the injuries for named characters as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that. And I'll be keeping an eye also on how they actually kind of interlink the games, because I've been trying to think about different ways of doing that myself. So, yeah.
So I'm trying to keep that narrative flowing through the...
Yeah, because there's lots of different ways of doing it. And that's almost my problem. It's like, we could do it this way, we could do it that way, we could do it this way.
And then it's knowing which way is going to work well in a that sort of environment as well. If it gets a little bit too difficult to organise.
Yeah, I think they all can to a certain extent, but they've all got to be arranged slightly differently. So I had 5 different zones at my last event. I'm more tempted to have everyone playing the same game this time, but to mix up the tables with different stuff. But that potentially brings other issues in. Yeah, I don't know. It's almost like there's too much swirling around in every so often I'll get rid of an idea and hopefully I'll settle on one. Because, that'll be cool. So, £40 again down in Southampton. A bit of a shame I missed out on that one. It's a busy time of the year, though. April, starting next year, is going to be very busy.
Yes.
Lots of events. Heard rumours that the Horus Heresy Weekender might not be in February, but that's completely unsubstantiated as far as I'm aware.
Any idea when it was rumoured to be moved to?
No, which is even more disconcerting.
If it goes back, I can live with that. If it comes forward, I will panic.
If it goes back onto a date that I've organised or committed to, it causes a real issue.
Yes,
because I'd be tempted to say, stuff it, I'm going to the Heresy Weekender. I don't want to miss out, but I don't know. But the problem with the system they've got is, well, I say it's not a problem. The system they've got is the events team are running it, and until it's announced, like specifically announced, and probably tickets go on sale, it can change.
Yeah.
So it's until you've got a ticket in your hand, don't be 100% sure that any event is going to be kind of where you expect it to be. So, nature of the beast. But I also, to be honest, I would like the events team to get information out a little bit earlier if they can, because there's no reason why they can't organise these things well in advance.
Yeah.
Because you've got to book up hotel, particularly for that one, you've got to book up the whole hotel. So if you leave it too long, you'll get, the issue they had when it ended up in February was because the weekend they wanted was taken, I believe. So it got pushed forwards to find a weekend to slot it in.
Yeah. And I think I would be surprised if they're not on top of that, having the events team doing it. But, you never know.
No, you don't know that because it might be that they want to do something else, and that means everything changes. I'm not suggesting that they just change it willy nilly, but other things can affect it. So it would be really nice to know early on, because again, a big thing is particularly for a weekender, people fly from Australia and America, wherever they're coming to that weekender, because very specifically. So it's good to get it out if they can.
Yes.
Just wondering if there was anything else that we need to cover before we head on out. Are you aware of anything?
No, nothing at all.
Good man. So yes, you can follow us on Twitter at imperial_truth.
And you can follow myself on Twitter and Instagram at Neil Paints.
And I'm on Twitter at Child of Fang. Won't be at the open day, naturally. We'll try and retweet some stuff, I suppose, and maybe chuck it on the Facebook. If you are wanting to find that information, the chances are Garrow's Facebook page and 30k Forums Garrow Posts does a thread, and he's kind of on it. It's almost like a second job for him. So,
count out.
Yeah, so you're going to find the usual threads. I'm not going to mention any other forums because, frankly, I don't want to. But they're the two places to go to. I've seen them. I see people on Friday when Russ was announced. 4 hours later, I see people putting links up to bowls to get the pictures of Lehman Russ. And I'm like, if you're into the Heresy or if you're into Forge World, and these are people who are into Forge World, if you're into Forge World, right, why are you getting that from Bella Lost Souls or Spiky Bits or wherever? Which I haven't, I've got certain issues with those sites, but they do collect stuff and it can be a one-stop place to get it. But I'm like, surely you would be aware of it from the Forge World post first.
You'd hope so, wouldn't you?
And at least then you know that those links are going to come without your phone exploding from pop-ups or just redirecting you 89 times, So, But they do, the other thing some of them, sometimes they don't do is they don't really credit the people very well. And I know Garrow's had a lot of stuff just copy and pasted from his. Bella Lost Souls have got a little bit better at it. But, yeah, if you go to 30k Forums, there's usually a thread that's dedicated to all the comings and goings from the weekenders and open days and whatever else there is. And Twitter's a great place for it.
Yeah, I generally have a quick scroll through
Ooh.
Twitter and someone's retweeted something usually.
Yeah, Battle Bunnies, they're another decent one. Their site's not full of ads, and they put stuff up in an honest, and, it might not necessarily be correct 100% of the time, but it's honest. If they make a mistake, it's an honest mistake.
Yes.
Which is fine, that's going to happen. But they're pretty good at keeping up to date on that. They're usually at the front of queues for these things as well.
That's the key thing, isn't it? Getting in there early.
Yeah, and I try and do it to a certain extent with the podcast, but like the guys who do it regularly for a lot of events, it can be hard work, and also you can miss out on looking at stuff yourself while you're racing around trying to get information. It doesn't sink in properly as you're doing it, and also you can. It's quite weird. I saw I think it was James Hewitt, who works for Specialist Design now, Specialist Games, was like looking at my phone a bit, and then it was only when we got home he tweeted me. He was like, "Oh, you were writing that when I was talking to you." I guessed it was for a blog or something. You can feel a bit weird with your phone out. You're talking to someone, nodding and smiling at them, just texting away, tweeting away. But,
He just said this.
Yeah, nature of the beast. Always, threaten to reveal all the secrets, even if you don't know any.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they love it. They absolutely love it. Yes. And that's about it, really.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll leave that there, and we'll come back in a few weeks with some more heresy. You have been listening to The Imperial Truth.